If you have found your way here, you are a real estate pro who's ready to transition from chasing leads to getting dream clients to chase you. This podcast is where you will learn the business and systems strategies you need to grow your real estate business so that you can get paid consistently, connect with dream clients, and keep your sanity. Welcome back to the show, Matthew. I'm so excited to hop on with you and have a conversation. We were just kind of like chit-chatting before we hit record, and I was like, we gotta stop this. We gotta just hit record because there's too much to get into, and we were gonna get carried away. But I am so grateful for you being so generous with your time to hop on with us on the Market Authority Show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me, Stephanie. I was excited to be asked. And again, we did mention this before. Like it's weird to get to know people through their YouTube channels and stuff, but it's like a fingerprint, right? It's something unique about that person. You get to identify them, their writing and their content. And I love the stuff you've had out. I've been sharing it with a lot of folks in classes and in my brokerage for a while. So I'm excited to be asked to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to get into today. But for those who have not met you yet, can you share a little bit about who you are and where you are today?
Yeah, I'm a nerd who found my way into real estate. You know, I don't think anybody in real estate like grew up as a kid wanting to do that, but I found it through a series of changes in life. And um, I currently am the executive vice president, basically running operations for a firm in Virginia that's also in DC, Maryland. We big for some, small for others. We have about 260 agents and another 50 or so staff member. And that's my primary gig. It's actually next week will be my 15th year with Coldwell Banker Elite. And then other than that, I'm also a speaker and content producer. So I work with the association, the National Association, state and locals to help them write courses and content. I teach all over the place, sometimes inside and outside of the country, and just like creating resources and tools for agents. So that's kind of the overview of what I do with my day.
That's really cool. So I didn't realize that you had been in the position that you were for so long. How long have you been like liaison, like between, not liaison specifically, but kind of that connection with like NAR? Is that also 15 years?
So I guess no. I'm currently I'm the president-elect for Real Estate Business Institute, which is NAR's largest education arm. We have about 50,
Yeah.
60,000 members who have the designations and things. That's
Incredible.
my connection at the national level. I've served on national bodies for a while. I think as early as probably 2006, I want to say, was my first committee there. This is my 22nd year in the business, which I always feel funny saying because I think most people don't like as an instructor, nobody cares how long you've been doing it. They care at the end of the day what you taught them in class. And I think we lean too much into how many years been doing it, but that's about 22 years. So I've seen a lot of stuff going down. My first MLS entry was dial up and you can only put 4 photos in. So we've changed a lot in that time.
How has the last year been for you as the industry prepared for the big settlement that went through in August?
So it's weird, and if your folks are listening, they're gonna want to come through the radio and slap me. Is it a radio? I guess just a podcast. Their phone. I was excited because I love change. I think even bad change leads to something better down the road. Because if we made a bad change, we figure it out, we wound up somewhere else. So I love change. I love that a higher focus has been now put on the buyer and on customer service than in the past, and that the buyer, the obligations that we now have, if you're an MLS member, are equal to what it was for a seller to get them to sign. Every state required signed listing agreements. They didn't all require signed buyer agreements. So I got a little excited about that. And the flip side, it has been utterly exhausting between rewriting some of the national curriculum, working with NAR attorneys who have been great at giving some guidance, and then trying to give us some insight into that, and then working with our own firm where almost every day I felt like I was producing new videos or new resources for our agents to better understand what's going on. But it revealed some things about our industry. True, like here in Virginia, our company, to do our business, we have to be members of 6 different or so many different association MLSs, but with 6 different forms of library of documents, of MLS policies that were different, of state regulations that were coming out to support different things. And it's been insane trying to keep up with it all. And the one thing I came at the bottom was, if it wasn't for systems and tools, I wouldn't have been able to keep up with it as a broker. But also, we still have a lot of work to do to simplify so many things in our business. So it's been a whirlwind. It's been exhausting. And I was just sharing with a friend yesterday. I feel like, we're recording this in mid-October. I feel like this is the first normal week I've had in a very, very long time, where there wasn't some big change and there wasn't some problem. So it's been a lot, and it's been a lot of not only educating our own staff and agents, it's educating people who are full of a tremendous amount of misinformation that they're getting from all the wrong places.
Why don't we dive into that? Can you speak a little bit to what misinformation you want to tackle?
Well, okay. Well, this is going to be an 18-part podcast series. I guess I'll just summarize it in this. If you are getting your information about how to do your own business, how to work through an AR settlement or practices or policies, how to handle escrow, how to get a buyer agreement signed, and you're doing that through a Facebook group, you're likely getting misinformation.
Mhm.
Because the people there who have the whole day to rant and rave about things are people who are likely not producing or who are not organized or managed in their own life. Because if you were a productivity type person, you would not be able to spend 6 hours on a Tuesday giving your opinion to other people on Facebook. Your broker should be where, and if your broker should be where you get your information, your guidance, your counseling, your mentor, or coaches and mentors who you've hired who specializes in those areas. And there's plenty of good ones out there. I have actually had to leave a number of Facebook groups because of the liability. It's a constant source of antitrust violations and improper information. But also it's just leading a lot of agents down the wrong path. And some of them are this confusion that we're getting. You can clearly align with social media, content and conversations from people who don't know what they're talking about. They're not citing a source, they're not giving information. You can quite frankly get more information about how to practice as a real estate agent using perplexity.ai than you can from other realtors. If they're in Texas and you're in Virginia and you're asking how to handle an escrow issue, you've already not only exposed yourself to some liabilities, because I do a little bit of work with attorneys helping them prep for cases, the expert witness work. One of the first things I say, if you're trying to show an agent's incompetent, you look at their social media, see what questions they're asking of other agents instead of their own brokers.
Mhm.
Look at what they're saying. If they go to a group of other real estate agents and they say, if you're not charging X, I'm not showing your property. Well, they've already shown a lack of care for their buyer because they're choosing properties on compensation, not the buyer's right. They're saying they're showing a lack of ability to negotiate properly because they are saying, if the listing agent isn't going to negotiate on my behalf, I don't have the skill set to negotiate on my own behalf, so I'm not going to show the property. And then lastly, specifying a number or a practice in a group of competitors is what leads to more antitrust violations. So that simple statement that I see made hundreds of times in the social media groups have drawn a direct line to showing you're likely going to be proven in court as being incompetent and a liability to your clients. So, not the fun stuff we want to talk about. We want to get to marketing and client engagement later, but I think that you should be with and align yourself with a broker or a mentor or a consultant who really is looking out for you and knows what they're talking about to help you guide you. And we all need mentors. We all need consultants and guides, but you need to align with somebody who can do that well, and knows what they're talking about, as opposed to someone you've never met, but their opinion maybe aligns with yours. So it's dangerous.
It is. I think that just in my years of working with agents and also working in sales for almost 10 years now, our mindset so sways our actions. What would you say to the agents who have just a really poor mindset around this change? You already said that you're excited by it, and I was as well. What would you say if you had a moment to speak to an agent who just feels absolutely distraught, feels so confused, so overwhelmed by all the information that is floating out there, misinformation?
We've been in an organized industry for 116 years, and with every change, there has been a group of our peers who have said this will be the end of us. When aggregators came out, that'll be the end of us. When the internet came out, when social media came out, there was a speech from an NAR president who referred to it, I believe it was called the bear or the lion coming over the mountain. It was going to devour us all. We're resilient. But the resilient people are the ones who are in the beginning of that curve of innovation and change. And that's for everything, whether it's a technology curve, whether it's a whatever it is. The people at the top of that beginning of that, before you get to that chasm, are the ones who benefit from it. And so an agent who sees this as an opportunity to go, I want to tell you a story, dear buyer, that I want to tell you about where my unique value proposition is, how I am going to help you get the other side. And you can go look at Facebook page of your favorite real estate agent who you have volunteered with at church for 20 years and that you love, but go look at how scared they are on Facebook. Go look at the negativity they have on Facebook. Is that the agent you want to work with? Or is it me who's going to focus on the villains in your story and how we're going to overcome them? And here's my unique value proposition. Here's the tools I'm going to give you. Here's the knowledge, because I'm a knowledge worker. I'm not a fear worker. And if somebody's afraid, they're not doing their best work. If they're looking at how we're going to treat you as a person, and we're going to, dear buyer, we're not going to just run out to the house and unlock the door for you anymore, because even my Uber driver knows what they're getting paid before they provide the service, right? That's already predetermined. So I'm going to ask you, just like when you took a job, you knew what you were going to get paid. I'm going to ask you to agree to allow me to get compensated. Now you're going to allow me to do that in a couple of ways. And it may be to ask the seller to make good on the promises you've made to me through the contract or the listing firm, or I may come back to you and go, we're going to explain what my services are. We're going to put a value on them, and you're going to agree to pay that. And if not, then you're free to go out on your own, but you do so at a risk, and your risk of damaging yourself by not having the right person represent you is far greater than the compensation I'm asking you to pay me. And because of all that, we've now elevated we've focused so often in 2 decades now. I have seen nothing but content and curriculum on how to win the listing. Listing presentations are abundant. You go to Etsy and look for Canva templates on presentation. There's like one buyer template for every 500 listing templates. And my question has always been, why did we choose to treat the buyer as less of a valuable human than we did the seller? It was because in most states, if not all of them, you were required to get a listing agreement signed, and because you knew the seller likely was talking to several different listing agents. Now the buyer that we're asking to compensate us, or at least ensure we get compensated through negotiations or however we do it, we get the chance to sit down with them and tell our story. And hopefully our story is compelling enough where they show value that we're going to be a trusted guide for them through this process, which for many of them, especially now as interest rates go up and other challenges occur, is going to be the most financially burdensome thing they ever do in their life, and the most stressful thing they do in their life. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about all the tools and resources we can do to tell that story in a more compelling way. But the other exciting part to that agent, to tell that agent, you get a chance to tell your story. You get the chance to be more competitive than others. You get a chance to show off the stuff you know, to see the buyer see value in you and work with them. And all it takes is, there's a bunch of free stuff that you can do to do that. And it's going to be okay. This is going to give you the competitive edge, if you're doing this and executing well, to alienate the other 1.5 million realtors who are out there in the marketplace trying to get the buyer's attention, and why they're fretting and why they have anxiety. This is a chance for you to put your head down, focus on something other than the noise on social media, to build your brand and build your business in a more meaningful way, and know that you're going to survive. And what we have seen over time is that the agents who put their head down, and typically those who are newer to the industry relative to the time of a change, whether it be a bad market or the housing decline or whatever, they come out to be the strongest agents for a longer period of time. And so, yes, it's different, but it's an opportunity to build trust and loyalty for that buyer sooner than just being able to open the door. So I know that was 3 answers to your question, but that agent who's seeing anxiety, stress, this is an opportunity for you, because everybody else is focused on fear, where you could be focused on storytelling.
I appreciate you taking the time to give us the context. I think that there are a lot of agents who are stuck in their silos, who feel very isolated and who are not getting direction or just like a common sense approach to what is happening to the industry. And so they do fall into that fear just by proxy of not having access, right, to that perspective. But I also think that it's really important for us all to kind of have language to explain like what we feel and how we're getting to overcome it. So let's start with how we're going to overcome it. What is the first step? What tools and resources are you really excited about that agents can dive into? Where do we start?
Sure. Well, I think you start on, one of the things that is frustrating for me, and I don't, it's just totally a Matthew thing. I don't know anybody else sees this or gets frustrated at it, but I see a lot of people with this very kind of, uh, um, I don't know what the word that I'm looking for, but they're very quick to say, just focus on your value proposition, you'll be fine. The National Association of Realtors posted on facts.realtor a list of 105 things that agents do for buyers, and I think like 180 things we do for sellers. And so already you start off with 1.4 million people who are working from the same list. Now we all know that we're not all built equal and that there's different agents at different levels, but the core things we do are already listed there, and it's a lot. That's not the unique part. So when a broker or a coach or mentor or someone who's even well-meaning just says, go work on your value proposition, what does that what does that mean, and how does an agent get to that point? And I think we start with, I'm not going to be the agent for everybody in the country. I'm just not. And I focus on the niche consumer, that group of, in my case, I like working with young families. And for fair housing reason, I'm not going to be saying, okay, I'm only working for clients who are in their 30s with 2 kids. That's not going to be how I phrase that. But my content material will be about things that they would embrace in their buying journey. And when I start focusing on them, and I love Donald Miller's book Story Brand. I think it's a great starting point, right? But one of my favorite tools, and they put it out there for free, it's called mystorybrand.com. And mystorybrand.com is a free tool you can use to start creating a caricature or the consumer persona of the person you're going to work with, and identifying who their villains are in their story and having empathy for them, and figuring this out. And my guess is you do the exact same thing with your academy, is that you got to figure out who you're going to work with. I'm not going to be putting a lot of marketing about 55 and older, because although I'm knocking on the door of 50, I'm a couple months away, and yes, I have grandkids and stuff. We started very, very young. I still don't identify with 55 and older. I'm just far too immature for that. So I would rather identify with the younger group. And that starts to, when I start to build who my client is, I start to be able to identify where their villains are and how I'm going to help them overcome them. And then it helps me build the content. So for example, with this, when I go through this little consumer persona, and I have, you might appreciate this, I don't know if nobody else does, I have a laminated copy of my client persona and a little stock photo of their family there. And when I go to write a listing description, or I go to write a blog post, or I go to create a video, this is who I'm trying to reach. And by the way, it's laminated, because laminating stuff is amazing. Like that warm plastic comes out of the machine, just put it right against your cheek. Anyways, I don't use a lot of paper in my business, so I got to turn it into plastic because that's great for the environment. But anyway, but I create that consumer persona, and then I can start to identify, how do I reach them, and how do I reach them before the moment that they come to me. Google calls it the 0 moment of truth. That's my online presence. That's when somebody says, I'm looking to buy a home in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Who do I go to? And you could say, I know an agent there. Here's the email address. That person is incredibly likely to Google me before they call me. So if we know that, what is the number? Something like 73% of consumers Google per service provider before their first encounter. That's that 0 moment of truth. What does my website say? And if your website is like, now's a good time to buy, and it's absolutely not, there's a disconnect. If your website's just market statistics, they've got that. They know where the listings are. They don't need your IDX solution, your website. But if you answer questions like, what do I need to know about a well and septic, a home on well and septic, because I've never had one? What do I need to know about buying a home that has solar panels? Where are the dog parks? Are there hiking trails? Are there biking trails? Where's there's not the antique store, that would be 55 and older. But
no, I've been known to frequent some antique stores in my time.
Well, okay, so me too. It's one of my favorite things. Like, you can't see it in my studio now, but I've got a whole shelf of incredibly old cameras over here, and old record players, like any old gadget, any old phones even. I love to gather. But anyway, that aside, one of the best blog posts that I've written was during COVID. I was watching young families struggle with having their kids at home and the schooling through a computer screen. I think they were all just upset that they actually had to live with these kids they created for, locked in the house for months at a time. But I wrote a blog post about what our local library was doing. Our library was giving you, and they would clean it up and put it in a basket outside so you could pick it up. They were giving you kits to create YouTube videos and to have little studio stuff you could borrow. They had teachers who would, for free, do helping kids who were struggling with certain topics by Zoom. They had language classes. Linda, it's what is it, $450 a year to have Linda as a training tool, video training tool. They were giving it away to free anybody who had a free library card. They were doing all these things that nobody knew about. And I said, nobody needs to know what the housing market's doing here. That they're getting that market from everywhere. What they need to know is how to help their kids. And so I wrote this blog post about the library. The library reshared it, and it wound up just blowing up. And it's still a really popular search 4 years later. Because again, my consumer persona is to help people with their lives until they're ready to buy. And then when they're ready to buy, I've got field guides, I've got maps of the area. I'm on my website. My website is set up to be that first meeting, that first consultation. And then we earn the right to have the discussion about their business and what compensation means and how we need to get it in writing.
So this is so interesting to me, and I love everything that you're sharing. I don't understand why this is still so new in this industry when every other industry has to go through something like this. And not necessarily the NAR supplement, but what we're talking about in terms of identifying your ideal client and positioning yourself in such a way to clearly allow them to self-select to become your client. Like, I don't understand why in 2024, this is groundbreaking advice when every other industry has to go through that in order to find their clientele. Why is this something that real estate agents are so resistant to? Or when you're explaining this to real estate agents, are you finding that it's actually very well adapted? Like, what is the temperature in the agents who you're speaking to and kind of providing this guidance about?
So I can't speak for all of them. I can tell you the ones that call me later were in their face or stop me at a lunch break or a break in class. And there's a couple of variables there, I think, to become barriers for us that weren't to other industries. Number one is that brokers who are supposed to be our leaders and guides and consultants produced for a short period of time, became brokers, and stopped learning. Now they are, they just stopped learning. And so they stopped sharing, they stopped pushing an agent. They were afraid, like, if I push you too hard to go create a video, that you might run off to a different company that's not going to have that same standard. And instead of exemplifying what a contemporary marketer should look like. So my role, in my company is to, we hit AI super hard, like when it first came out. And I used it in every day. If as a broker, if I tell my agents video is important, I'm also creating videos. Whether, as a matter of fact, just before we got on here, I was editing recruiting videos to put out in a marketing campaign. I have to exemplify as a leader what I anticipate or expect my agents to do. And most brokers, I feel, don't do that. I feel like they're telling their agents, quite frankly, they're still telling their agents to go do open houses when statistical probability of conversion for most marketplaces is not very high. There are certain pockets where it is incredibly high, and you should do open houses when the traffic's right and you've marketed well and all the things align. There's other areas where it's just the murder box and you're going to wind up getting hurt because you're not supposed to be there advertising you're by yourself in a home. And it is dangerous. So there's this breakage between contemporary advice and counsel. And the second part is, when I do these classes, the agents love the concepts, but they're half listening to concepts because they're already going, I can't do that. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know how to build a video. I don't know how to use AI. And their brain does something weird where they just start to shunt the advice for the fear of what they believe themselves not to be able to do, when the technology has done nothing but get infinitely easier every day. And the last thing I'll add, a reason why I think this is so challenging for us and not other industries is that other industries have been forced into change to be competitive, and they've been forced to seek out good advice and follow it to be competitive. Whereas real estate agent, because in mass, we have largely not adjusted to a consumer behavior because they didn't force us to, has remained the same, and we thought we were the gatekeepers. And so this is why there was, and by the way, just to that statement I made earlier, what was it? Students at Yale actually cut down the first electric light pole because they thought it was evil. There's always been a fear of technology advancement and change in a culture, yet we also tend to adapt very quickly to it. And so these agents who have these fear and have not had really the motivation or to change because they hadn't had the skill set to change because they didn't have anybody to teach them or lead them through that change, just pushed it away and said, we're doing business okay. Even through all these changes, even through aggregators becoming predominant and non-real estate firms giving data and content to the consumer, we still see an increase year over year of consumers using agents in their buying and selling. It's like something around 93% of consumers. It was 89% 7 years ago. And I think it's because these consumers are seeking out agents who are showing some difference from the other agents, that they are seeing a value. But also, the world's getting noisier. There's more advice out there than ever before. AI is going to be kicking out and creating so much content that the buyer and seller are going to be like, we don't know what's true, and we need a guide to walk us through all this overwhelming amount of data that it may or may not be factual. And so I see a good path for these things to manifest now for the agents who are willing to adopt to them to do so. And so all of those three primary factors, I think, are why agents up to this point haven't done it. They haven't been forced to. Now the consumer is more sophisticated and demanding. I'll add one little fourth comment there, that not to irritate anyone. I hope I don't irritate anybody with this industry, because baby boomers are such a large group of our populace, and the age span is so large that this industry has become ideal for to baby boomer consumers who are now a smaller portion of the buying and selling community, but the agent community still remains primarily in the baby boomer phase. And so they're only now realizing that the upcoming Gen Z and Gen X and millennial generations are more demanding in a different way than the predecessors have to adjust to it.
So one thing that that is interesting. I remember getting into real estate and looking at the NAR statistics, and statistically at the time, I'm sure it's changed somewhat now, the average real estate agent was like a 53-year-old female, college educated, re-entering the workforce, something of that nature. Is that kind of what you're seeing a little bit, to where they are also having to like adapt a little bit to the consumer expectation that has changed so rapidly? Is that kind of, just to clarify?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I think that oftentimes we see these see agents trying to adopt to the platform, but not the culture.
Okay.
So look, I love you out there. I love you other grandparents, but you don't want to see me on TikTok dancing. It's not going to be, I'm not going to get clients from it. If I'll get the wrong kind of clients, if that's what they're into, it's not going to be my vibe. But to be a storyteller and be able to summarize value or put out humorous content. I sound old when I say humorous content. As opposed to some funny stuff. I would like to say something else, but you have to bleep it out. But put some funny stuff out there. Like, that's part of the culture, and we don't listen enough. And so that's why I think also you see a migration to Facebook being a predominant tool for a lot of agents, is they're comfortable there.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything other than be themselves, and they're fond of following. But in other systems they do. So I think there are agents who are trying to adopt to a emerging and changing consumer, but they have to learn to listen to the culture, not just figure out how to use the platform. Because anybody can post Instagram photos, but not everybody can post an engaging Instagram photo with the right hashtags and call to actions.
One thing that you said that I want to hear you speak more on is, with how noisy the world is, it gives us an opportunity to cut through that noise and be that like guiding voice. How do we get there? What are you seeing that's effective to get that appointment, or to have that conversation, or even just to warm them up enough to set the appointment?
Yeah, I mean, we're knowledge workers. They seek out our advice and counsel because of what we know. And I think a lot of agents have misaligned with, I've got the right headshot. And again, I said this earlier, kind of joking, even at myself, I've been doing this for 22 years. Well, okay, let's break down what that means to the consumer. So for baby boomers, staying in a job for 20 years meant that the company liked you. You likely started on the early floor and went up through the ranks. Consistency was a big thing for them. Well, the baby boomer generation found out they were healthier at an older age, that they were comfortable with the income they were making, and they had no real impetus to go retire or get out of the workforce, which left very little for salaries and advancement for the preceding generations. And so those generations have had to jump from one job to another every 18 to 24 months, because being hired by a competitor was the only way to make more money or get a better title. right? So just to take that premise there. So when you tell someone who's 40 years old now, we call, people like those millennials, they're 40 years old now, they're adults, they have kids, and you tell them you've been doing it for 20 years, they're all like, oh, did nobody else want you? Because you've
Yeah.
been in the same place, right? You weren't hired from anywhere, and that's not a selling point.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for giving that language. My language for that is saying you have 20 years in the experience and expecting that to be enough is trashy. So I like the way that you put that better. That's much more eloquent.
Yeah.
But I think that is such, oh my gosh, such an articulate way to kind of like put in that context. Because when I got into real estate, that was a big reason why I got into real estate. I was in corporate finance and there were not enough opportunities for me to make my own way. And so I was like, peace out, I'm going to go into real estate. Most other professionals who are purchasing homes and high dollar homes are switching jobs 18 to 24 months because, like you say, they're getting the pay raise, but they're also acquiring more skills. They are moving in parallel lines towards like the same kind of job path usually, but every time they move, they are learning new skills. And so to them, that's racking up a more diverse resume. Whereas if they think that you're doing the exact same thing over and over for 20 years, it's like, what does that do? That doesn't help them. But the person who's on TikTok, which I've closed deals on TikTok before, like the only way that sometimes consumers are seeing what we actually do beyond just like yell about our experience is through what we're sharing and articulating on these social media platforms.
Right.
So in terms of like, sorry, I just want to kind of put my own word on that, my own pin on that, because I think that I'm so passionate about that conversation. How are you directing agents to set that consultation once they earn enough trust to get a captive audience with their prospective clients?
So I want to, I want to, for example, because I don't want to just hinge on the baby boomers, because I got an attack on the on the younger generation too when it comes to building value, the misunderstanding of the value we're building, and I call them hostage photos, and you've seen them, you maybe even done them. At the closing table, you put your arm around a buyer who just signed 400 pages of crap you don't understand, and you're
You
like,
have the big key, right?
yeah, right. Let's take a picture together. And they're like, they got a baseball cap on and torn clothes. There's a dog dying in their U-Haul because they didn't roll the windows down. And they're just like trying to get out the door to this new house so they can throw all their boxes in there because, the pizza's coming and the volunteers are going to, half the volunteers they had a line are going to show up to help them move. And they don't, that's not a testimony. And I ask agents, like, why do you do the hostage photo? Like that for sale rider they're holding in front of them should have today's date, like proof of life as a hostage. And I'm like, why are
you are describing my core marketing plan from 2015 to 2019.
Well, we all did it because we saw we all did it. But this is so many things that we do. Why do you do that? I saw other top producing agents do it. It must be the right thing instead of being different. But what I see is you telling a consumer, hey, I had a closing today. Well, the average consumer, that's your job. They expect you have closings all the time.
They don't understand what it takes to even get there. For us, it's a celebration of the 60-day, 12-month, somewhere in between journey. But again, like they don't even understand that just closing on the house usually can take 30 to 45 days if they've never purchased a home, which many very professional, like higher value millennials have not purchased a home yet, right?
That's right.
Or maybe they haven't done it in 10 years. They don't remember.
But Stephanie, tell me that story. Don't tell me that you did something as an agent, that you did your job. Like, thank God proctologists don't do the same type of marketing. Look what I did today at work, guys. Like, I don't want that in my life. So as an agent, tell me the story of your millennial and how they, are so excited to move into this new home and what that meant to them, or let them, better yet, tell the story and post it on your social, because if you ask them to in the right environment, not right after closing, because that's not the end of my relationship with them. I don't want to have a closing, photo of them. I don't go talk to them a week after they moved into the house and and go, oh, by the way, I want to pull my phone out here. And can you just give us a couple minutes to talk about how the experience was buying and why you chose to buy in this area and what you loved about it? No, by the way, if you happen to say something nice about me, wink, wink, that'd be great. That's going to get you way more engagement and help tell a story of meaningful engagement with a consumer than hostage photos, or I just happen to be licensed for 25 years. I'm a survivor, right? That's not
I'm
the
a
case.
survivor. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you're cracking me up right now.
but it is, it's the wrong story. We're telling our story instead of theirs, and every one of those moments. So okay, you asked me a question that I told you I was going to get back to, and now I forgot the question.
Let's
Um,
land that plane. Just kidding. Well, I want to just take a moment. So, you said something about the reviews. While we circle back to what the original question is, it'll come to me.
We're just trying to fill air now.
Giggling over here, like kicking my feet because I'm like, yes, someone understands it. When we're talking about reviews, one thing, and I just want to like throw this tip out there, and I'm sure that this is probably something that you already provide guidance on. So I just kind of want to put the words out there just to give this like a meaty tip. A lot of agents really focus on getting the review. They're like, I need the review, and then maybe 1 out of 5 clients will actually take the time to submit a review. Super frustrating. And then they post it to the site and they never use that review. They don't do anything with it. And it's usually something like, Stephanie was great. She had great communication and she helped us close. And then we got our keys and like, it was great. It was just so awesome. What we actually do with our agents is we give them a review template. And instead of having them actually, hey, just go send a review, we give them like leading prompts, like how did you feel before this happened and how did you feel after? And it's not even so much of a review request, because if they never take that story and submit it onto like your agent page somewhere, but they give it to you in an email, you can do so much with that. You can do so much with that. We actually have our agents go through and add that context to a document that we can then create their marketing plan, which is exactly what you're illustrating here. So agents who are listening to this is not like rocket science. Like, take a minute to think critically about what kind of information you are trying to get from your clients who have closed successfully with you, so that you can speak to the reality that other people who are living in that space are. You can speak to them so that they feel heard and seen. And that is the best way to cut through the noise, in my opinion.
100%. And we start from the consultation of saying, at the end, we're going to ask you for a testimonial. Currently we're using Testimonial Tree, but we've really had to dumb it down because some of these testimony services, they have like a 5-page medical review of review questions, and the consumer doesn't have. That's
you have to remove as much friction from this entire process as possible, to your point, because of how much noise there is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And to get usable testimonial, I mean, people want to see people like them. They don't want your story as the agent. They want the buyer story. The buyer had a positive experience, and that's really, they want to know how many stars. 4 more stars, that's good. 4 or 5 sentences, that's great. But I want the buyer, when our seller, to when at the end of the review, to tell their story. So my prompts are, tell me how the experience was for you. What did you learn from it? Did it, satisfy your needs? Whatever it was, and give them a chance to tell that story. And if we do it on video, to tell your story. And I asked that question, can you just share with other people how your story was? And some of my buyers, I'll say, there are people like you who are in their 30s who are scared to death to buy a home. What advice would you give them? And they will inevitably, my clients, whenever I give them that prompt, will say, you got to go work with Matthew, because I'm sitting there. Like, there's an obligation regardless of whether they feel that way or not. But it becomes a good value add, and you get some good content out there. And we do push, get reviews. I'm going to tell you, I just email everybody. Sometimes I'll put it on Facebook. Like, if we've ever worked together, just take a minute, give me reviews. But for my client, I want to know about the experience, because I can get 5 stars easy. I've got a mom. She'll go give me 5 stars. I hope. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a couple weeks, so we'll see. But anyways, you're back to your question. Your question was, once we do, okay, I'm sorry. My ADD is all over the place. And the funny thing about my ADD is, I won't think at all about what I'm getting ready to say and how it impacts people, but I will spend all night tomorrow night thinking about the stupid thing I said in 3rd grade.
Oh, I already put it in my calendar. Time for Stephanie to overanalyze everything she said with Matthew. It's not it.
I mean, is that on Asana? Do you have a checklist for like the 4 elements you have to review in your Asana checklist?
It's on there. Right before doom scrolling for 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I don't hate myself enough. Let's go see what's going on in the political world. Feeling good about today. I'm feeling there's promise, so I better go end that quickly. Anyways,
it's amazing.
Those reviews are important because they bring back again, what Google calls zero moment of truth process, is the review your client gives you now will be the starting point likely, or the conversion point likely, of the next buyer who's going to look you up. Even if they know you from church, they know you, maybe your family, they don't know the business part of you. They may like you, but they like a lot of people. And 1.5 million realtors means they likely know more than one of you.
Mhm.
And to get chosen is building that long-term relationship. We still have so many agents who are looking at what we used to hear in coaching was only focus on your 30-day buyer and sellers. Guys, I don't want you to focus on your 30-day buyer and sellers. Focus on anybody who will come to your website, who will sign up for your newsletter, because those folks are dreaming about buying one day, but they don't want to hear about market statistics in every email. They want to know about their lifestyle, what they can and will enjoy in their own community. Give them the calendar of events for the upcoming Shakespeare in the Park theater troupe. Go. I said it like it was spelled, not how it's
No,
pronounced.
I got it.
I need AI interpreters just for me. Build content about what people will enjoy in the community, about life hacks that you've learned along the way, about who you are. I mean, I did a video recently and it's the dumbest thing ever. And I had like, I don't know, 1,100 people watch it and comment on it. I was sitting in the front porch and I heard a bird singing. And because I'm a nerd, I have an app that identifies the type of bird by its song. And so I'm like, I'm sitting here in a baseball cap, just rolled out of bed and walking the dog out half awake. I just recorded a video on my phone and posted it, and it started conversation for 3 days because people like the app. People aren't going to have that kind of conversation because you did your job and closed a deal yesterday, or because you wrote a contract. Yay, I wrote 3 offers a day. They're like, we think you do that every day. Now, how do we take all this stuff and make it meaningful for a buyer and set up the consultation? So my website has a page that is designed to share. And so what I mean by that is if Stephanie, if you were like, hey, I've got family, I'm coming into Fredericksburg, I'm coming into DC area, where's a good dinner place? Well, I can just give you my restaurant. Or in my case, I used mymaps.google and built my favorite restaurants, my favorite hiking trail, my favorite activities, and it's posted on my website. My buyer guide that is right under it. So if you ask that question, I'm going to share a link to my website to go, oh, if you need a painter, you need a dog walker, favorite vets, any of that stuff. This is designed to get you to my website no matter where you are in life. And it's my single port of answering. If we set up a meeting, I want to help you resolve some things, solve some problems you didn't know you had. So my email would be, so Stephanie, you email and say, hey, text call, we have a little conversation. I'm thinking about buying a home. Can I meet with you? Sure. I'm not going to meet you at the house. We're going to meet in an office because it's going to, for me to help you and your family, I need to understand what your needs are because you're different than other buyers. Mm-hmm. And if you would just give me an hour or so to chat, and I'm going to tell them up front what it is. I have an email template, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. Everything is a template. And so I copied into the email, or if you're using Gmail, just use the Gmail template feature, plug in the date and time. It's got directions to my office. It's got stuff, but it also has links to, here's 5 apps that you can use to help you in your buying process. Here's augmented reality. Go use the IKEA augmented reality app. If you've got a bed, upload it in here. So when we go to a house, you can put your bed in the room through the camera. You'll see if it will fit, because everybody thinks their bed is much bigger than it is. Here's a crime mapping app, because I'm not going to be able to answer or give you opinion about crime, but I can give you the statistics. Here this is. Here's the market statistics report, and including a report from NAR RPR about the type of people who live in the community, because I can't give you my opinion, but I can give you data. And if you want to know those other kids, here's this report. Go look at it. Here's your tour guide. Here's this YZ. And then go to my website for more before our meeting, because that's the pre-meeting. I want them to get to know me there so I can focus on them at the meeting. And I'm very clear with them. You want to know about me? There's a video introducing myself and my services. There's reviews, but really there's field guides. So there's a field guide about buying a house with well and septic, or solar panels, or buyer stuff. And then there's videos. Here's what you need to know about wire fraud. You don't know that the second you emailed me about buying a home or emailed a mortgage lender, that this information on the deep dark web, which is true, is really there, may have been triggered for hackers to fake email accounts to you. Here's how we keep you safe. Our team is, as agents, we're trying to keep you safe. Watch this video. Dear buyer, here's a video on what you need to know when seeing homes, knowing that 73% of them likely have smart home devices or surveillance equipment, that you making positive or negative comments in or around the house could impact your negotiation power afterwards. This is a villain you didn't know you had. I'm going to show you how to resolve it. And so I'm giving my 5 best moves, if you would. If I was dating, I was 31 years married, so I'm dating every day. That's how you stay married 31 years. That and separate bank accounts. But um, I'm going to give you my best moves on that web page where there's 3 or 4 videos about things that you likely didn't know. There are field guides about things you likely couldn't find the answer to. And if you're here listening to this and you're like, I don't know how to build that content, then I am sorry your broker hasn't taken you through that, or your mentor or trainer, but that's what Stephanie and others in your life should be doing to help you with that process. But there's also a couple hacks. I mean, perplexity.ai is my favorite tool right now for getting a conversation started. Dear perplexity.ai, what do I need to know about buying a home in 2024? And Perplexity will to get a guide together, information together. I'm not going to give my clients that, but it helps me in my creative process start to write better content and then overlay my actual experience, my state laws, community rules, whatever, to build these things so that anytime they have a question, they see me as a center point to answers, not just someone who has a lockbox key and a license, because that's not a unique value proposition. It's barely a value proposition. The unique value proposition is I am here to protect your family. That is my primary point. And your trust in me isn't going to go and be without yield. It's not going to not show positive results. You could meet 50 agents and you could just go see a house and treat them as if they were a taxi driver you don't have to pay, but they're not learning you and they're not going to fine tune the results. And one other just example, NAR profile home buyer and sellers gives us a very good view of that consumer. Go take that, put it in ChatGPT and go, dear ChatGPT, tell me what I need to address with concerns of buyers, or tell me what I need to know to build a marketing campaign. And one of the things I find really interesting is we focus on what buyers look for, but not what they find valuable. So for example, in the NAR profile home buyers and sellers, there's 2 sections. What did buyers look for when they were searching out an agent? We go, oh, they want I don't know, firm handshake, a nice smile, and trustworthiness, honesty, whatever. What they found valuable was that we did a market analysis before they made their offer in the home. Why are you not putting that in your marketing? Here's something I'm going to do for you guys that you didn't know you wanted done is we're not going to just write an offer. We're going to do a full market analysis. And we're going to look at estimated costs as part of our consultation. And you start teasing these things that they never knew they needed and that no one else is offering because everybody else is such a hurry to run out the door. You start to build that tribe and set up that consultation meeting. I put my consultation guide on my website. They know exactly what we're going to talk about when we're getting there, but I don't put enough information for them to get the details, just an overview of what they don't know and some questionnaires for them. And that sets up a much more successful meeting.
Where can an agent start? What is like the first thing that someone can do this week in 1 or 2 hours to start building this out? Because what I want everyone to hear is Matthew just laid down the law. You just like put out all these incredible ideas, exactly how this can look in a realistic, point of view from a real estate agent. And it's not going to happen overnight. Like this is not going to happen overnight, and that is okay.
No.
We need to be okay with letting go of the desire for like instant gratification in this point, because like this is your business. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of effort. You may have to invest in some things to put this together. But what is something that an agent can do this week? Is it going on to perplexity.ai? Is it another tool, or maybe just something simple where they can self-audit what's missing and make a checklist and start getting it done?
Yeah, I mean, I not to answer your question, but I mean, actually, to be quite honest, it starts with time blocking. If I were going to take and say the first step is to sit down and schedule the time to take the second step. So it's, if you're sitting on a Wednesday listening to this on your ride into the office, sometime today you need to go, I'm going to square away 2 hours, make a promise to myself to square away 2 hours to get started on this. And those first 2 hours needs to be sit down and write the story. I don't mean bullet points. I don't write down the average age. You can get that stuff in a report. Write a story about what your perfect buyer looks like, who you like to work with, how do you find qualified people? And once you start with that caricature, that consumer persona, then you start to write down the questions that they have. And that starts creating your content. I mean, that's how I started. And look, we're here with, an hour or so to talk. I can't tell you about all the failings that I've had over 22 years. I've had a lot of them. I've had a lot of misses, a lot of stupid things I've done in marketing, a lot of stupid things that I would never do again. And and I did those things because I didn't think about the consumer. I thought, what are other agents doing, or how would I behave as a consumer? I got to think about who my consumer is, who I want to work with, and how it works. And then from you then put on your calendar 2 hours every week of doing, and 1 hour every week of learning. I don't know if it's reading a book, watching Stephanie's YouTube channel, doing whatever you do, but you need to have a total of 3 hours a week where it is non-negotiable. You have 1 hour of personal development, your knowledge worker, which if you don't know things, you have no value. You shouldn't get paid for it.
Wow.
And then you do,
We got to do that one more time. If you don't know things, you don't have value. That was hard. I'm going to write that down.
yeah, because finding somebody who has a real estate license isn't challenging.
No.
That doesn't make us valuable, right? Having a lockbox, having MLS, especially when you have different business models arising with investors who are like, you don't need an agent. We'll unlock the door for you remotely. All you have to do is schedule a time, right? That and those people are far off from being the majority, but they exist. And then so you need to know things. So 1 hour, whether it's reading a book, watching YouTube, listening to the right podcast, whatever they are, and there's just great content out there that's being given away. And again, your YouTube page, your podcast, the materials that you give away, those things are great starting points for your personal development. And there's several places you can get that information. Focus on the one that resonates with you most. I love podcasts. I like YouTube. I read a lot, but not as much as I consume those other two things. And then the other 2 hours is to sit down and learn how to do it, because you're not only a real estate agent, you're your own chief marketing officer. And at some point you're gonna look in the mirror and go, am I happy with what my CMO is doing and what I'm paying him or her to do? And if you're not, then the only way that you correct that is either learn to do it and do it yourself, or outsource it and pay somebody else to do it. And most of us are not gonna be able to afford the type of marketing I want anyway. So it's better to learn to do it. Focus those 2 hours on you being the chief marketing officer and creating content. I think the website is the number one place everybody has to be. And so once you start thinking about the consumer, learning what they want, it makes it very easy to start writing and creating content for what they want on the website. And that's the first tier. The second tier is definitely video. Video has a 403x, I think is the number, factor in conversion. You're more likely to convert with video than any other marketing tool out there. And I know some of you are going, I don't like how I sound in video and I don't like what I look like. Guys, just take video, record it, watch it back and go, that's what I am subjecting the world to every day, and people still love me. That's what I sound like. That's what I look like. And people still do business and like me. With video, I can at least edit some of that stuff out that I don't like, the ums and the, things. And then post a couple of videos out there. You get way more traction and interest. That's the second tier. Those are the first two things. Let's start with the website and then start building some video afterwards.
I love it. Okay, Matthew, as we come to a close here, for those who want to continue the conversation with you, where can they find you?
My website, MatthewRathbun.com. It's it's got a bunch of nerdy stuff on there. I've got a bunch of stuff for AI. That's my thing here recently, past year or two, actually 3, I guess now. And all my social media links, and some of it is just goofy me posting goofy stuff, and then sometimes there's some meaningful stuff you might learn from. I do that by accident. So
Love it. Amazing. Hello. I guess our time is there. I'm so excited that we got to have this conversation. I feel like we need to have a part 2. Because we just barely scratched the surface on what I know we can get into. But I just want to acknowledge you for being so generous and just so authentic with what you have to share with the community. You obviously have a lot of experience. You have a lot of stories to share as well. You have some incredible perspective that I wish every single real estate agent could hear. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing that with us today. This was a fantastic conversation, and I hope that we can follow it up with another one soon.
This is fun. Thanks so much for the chance to chat.
Awesome. Thank you.